Hello, I'm going to do a series of mini pre-recorded webinars that cover the basics of how to fill out the grant application. These webinars are going to be categorized by sections as noted in the application. The 2017 Community-Based Juvenile Services Aid application for both the CB and EB grant program was released on October 3, 2016. This webinar will cover Section 4 of the grant application, which is the budget breakdown. The budget breakdown section is a breakdown of all the requests listed on page 2 of the application and the budget summary. All requests expenses should be accounted for and broken down in the following subsections included within section 4. Category A is for personnel expenses. Funds in this category should reflect positions hired directly by the county or tribe with community-based juvenile services aid funds. Personnel refer to wages and fringe benefits for regular full-time or part-time salaried employees. Other individuals working on this project who are not on the regular payroll for the county or tribe must be classified in the consultants and contracts category of the application. Salaries may not exceed those normally paid for comparable positions in the community and/or unit of government. Any position that is 100% funded through grant funds and/or match must be 100% dedicated to the grant program's allowable activities. The percentage of funds requested through CB and EB for a position must not exceed the percentage of time devoted to job functions related to the CB or EB program. For example, if you're requesting that 50% of a community specialist position be paid through CB, however, the community specialist is devoting 25% of their time to job functions for CB, this is unallowable. Finally, costs for overtime rates are unallowable. The Crime Commission will honor that rate, the normal rate that you pay that employee if they do work overtime. So if an employee gets paid $20 per hour and they work over 40 hours a week, we would fund the $20 per hour at however many hours per week they worked overtime. The overtime rate of pay is what the Crime Commission will not honor for the Community-Based Juvenile Services Aid program. Therefore, your county or tribe would have to match that expense. For this table, in column 1, you'll list the title or position. List the title of the position that is being requested. Do not list individual names being employed by a position. In this column, you'll put F or P for full-time or part-time. You'll put N or E for new or existing. Remember, if this position is being requested for the first time, but is an existing position over the last few years, be sure to put E for existing. In this column, you'll list the current annual salary of that position. In this column, you'll list the projected annual salary for when the project period starts in July 1st, 2017. This column, you'll list the percent of time devoted to the project being requested. Remember that 2,080 hours annually is 100% or full-time. In this column, you'll list the wages that are being requested for this position. Here you'll list the fringe benefits that are being requested. And in this column, you'll put the total amount being requested, so you'll take the sum of the requested wages and requested fringe benefits and put it in this column. In these next two columns, you will list the match that your county or tribe is providing for wages or fringe of the position that you have listed here. The total project cost is the sum of requested wages, requested fringe, match wages, and match fringe. Be sure that you put in this last row the sum of all these columns. Additionally, For the requested fringe, all fringe benefits are to be based on the employer's share only. The employer's share is to be withheld from his or her wages. Only basic fringe benefits of insurance offered by the agency, such as health, life, professional liability, etc., FICA, unemployment insurance, workers' compensation, costs of leave, such as holidays, sick leave and vacation, and pension retirement can be included. Vacation and leave time are included in normal working hours, 1 FTE, 2,080 hours per year, and are not added benefits. Funds to support cafeteria plants are not allowed by the Nebraska Crime Commission. The personnel table budget breakdown is the next part. A budget breakdown must be completed for each position listed in the table above. Therefore, if you have 5 positions listed in this table, you will fill out this table 5 times for each position. Question number 1, is this position new or existing? Please check new or existing. If existing, describe how this position was previously funded. So some examples of this include, but are not limited to, county funds, tribal funds, a different grant source, federal or state, the Community-Based Juvenile Services Aid Program, CB or EB, Department of Health and Human Services, so on and so forth. Question number 3. Briefly describe how this request complies with the non-supplanting requirement. Here you would provide an explanation that funds being requested for this position will not be used to supplant or replace state, local, or tribal funds that would, in the absence of community-based funds, be made available for grant purposes. So the answer in question number 3 is really going to help us. For example, if in question number 2 you said, if existing, describe how this was previously funded and it was with county funds, the question would be, for number 3, how is this not supplanting? Well, the county's budget could have been cut. And then here you would describe exactly why the county's budget was cut and refer to the minutes in which that happened. And that would show us that these funds are not being replaced, they're not being supplanted. Question number 4, provide a job description. You have 2 options for this question. If the position is already created and existing, then attach the official job description. If it is new, then write a summary of the anticipated job duties in the space provided for this question. If the position is new and a job description has already been created, then attach the official job description to the grant application. As noted here, please refer to page 12 of the RFA for instructions on this section. Category B, consultants and contracts. Funds in this category should reflect programs and services contracted out to individuals or agencies. If the county or tribe does not directly operate the program, but relies on another entity to run the entire program, the whole budget is shown as a contract. There must be a current legal contract between the lead county or tribe and the contractor. This is important. The county or tribe is fiscally responsible and must ensure all funds are spent properly by any contracted programs or services. If the Crime Commission comes out and monitors a county or tribe who's receiving funds through the Community-Based Aid Program, and a nonprofit program that's being contracted with misuses funds, that county or tribe is actually responsible to directly pay back the Crime Commission, and that's not contingent on whether that nonprofit pays back the county or tribe. Therefore, it's very important that each county and tribe is very involved in this whole process. Consultants and contracts must adhere to the federal guidelines and must not exceed the maximum rate of $81.25 per hour or $650 a day. The rate for independent consultants must be reasonable and consistent with that paid for similar services in the marketplace. To break down costs for the consultant, please use the categories or fully explain what is included in the $650 per day. Lodging, meals, and travel costs should be included in the daily rate, which would prohibit additional charges above the full daily rate. Adherence to procurement procedures outlined in Nebraska State Statute 23-3108 applies to consultant and contractual agreements. It is stated in this statute, if the estimated value is $20,000 or more, then the agency must adhere to the competitive sealed bidding process. If the estimated value of the purchase is equal to or exceeds $5,000, but is less than $20,000, then a record of at least 3 informal bids must be documented. In the situation that a purchase is less than $5,000, the county or tribe must adhere to their procurement procedures. And once again, as mentioned in Category A personnel, costs for overtime rates are unallowable. So this year for the 2017 application, this table is new, contract fee for service. In the first column, you're going to list your service type. So an example of this would be tracker, electronic monitoring, presenter, mediation, counselor, or just a contractor. So for instance, some counties and tribes contract out for a grant coordinator. For the service type here, you'd put grant coordinator contract. This column, you would put the provider's name, list the agency or contractor responsible for providing the type of service being requested. Here you would list the rate, list the dollar amount that is being requested, either hourly or daily. List the amount of hours or days this service is being requested. Then check the box to denote whether the rate is being charged either by the hour or by the day. In the amount requested column, you would list the amount that's being requested in this box. Multiply the rate by the number of hours or days. Here you would list the amount that is being requested in this, here you would list the dollar amount being matched by the county or tribe for each service requested. In here, you would list the total project cost, which is the sum of the amount requested and the applicant's match. Please refer to page 13 of the RFA for these instructions. This table is being provided under the consultants contracts category because there are several counties and tribes who are requesting funds for personnel from programs within their corresponding county or tribe. All positions being requested that are not directly funded by the county or tribe will be listed in this table. Therefore, if there is a position being requested that is not an employee of the county or tribe, it will be listed in this table. They are considered consultants and contracts by the standard of the Nebraska Crime Commission. This table is exactly the same as the personnel table in Category A. Therefore, refer to those exact same instructions. The same goes for the personnel table budget breakdown. You're going to fill one table out per position listed in the table above. Expectations are the same for positions being requested in the personnel category and the consultants contracts category. Therefore, refer to those same instructions. Travel expenses of the consultant contract. Be sure to fill out a separate table for each travel purpose. All travel requests will abide by the policies and procedures of the Nebraska Crime Commission and the Nebraska Department of Administrative Services. In addition to the grant application, subgrantees will submit an out-of-state travel request form at least 6 weeks prior to travel. This form was released and announced in early August of 2016. Any individual traveling out of state on the community-based aid grant dollar must submit this form, out-of-state travel form, even if it was included in this grant application. Much of the information will be listed in these instructions in the request for application. However, the Community-Based Aid Division is in the process of creating a financial guidebook that will provide additional details and references, and this will be created and disseminated to all subgrantees in the Community-Based Aid Program at a future date. Again, like I mentioned earlier, copy the travel expenses form and complete it for each travel purpose. Rates for meals and lodging are listed on the General Services Administration website, also referred to as GSA, and are subject to change every year on October 1. All travel expenses listed below are reimbursed for actual expenses incurred within allowable rates only. For example, if you're going to Colorado and the per diem rate is $46 a day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, the Crime Commission does not reimburse incidentals. Many grant programs will give the $46 upfront to that individual and allow them to spend it as they desire. That is not the case for the Community-Based Aid Program. You are only reimbursed for what you actually spent on a meal, and it must be within the per diem rate listed on the GSA website. Getting back to the table. Here you would list the travel purpose. Just list the purpose that funds are being requested for travel. Be sure to check here if it is local travel within the community area, if it's within the state of Nebraska, or if it's out of state. This question is new this year, justification for travel. Provide an explanation for this travel request and how it will benefit youth being served by programs and services in the community. If this travel request is for administration, provide an explanation for this travel request and how it will benefit the community and youth being served. Explain how this request aligns with the funding purpose listed in the request for application, which specifically is following the guidelines of state statute. You will also list the position or positions in which will be traveling for this specific purpose. Moving on to the cost breakdown. Mileage is reimbursable at the rate listed for business travel specified on the IRS website. The website is listed and provided on the request for application on page 14. Keep in mind that at the time I'm doing this webinar, at the time that this application is released in September of 2016, currently the mileage rate is 54 cents per mile. However, that can change January 1st of every year. So when you're filling out the application, keep that in mind. Come January 1st, and when the actual application is due, which is January 9th, the rate could very well change. But that is not your fault. It will be a contingency that you'll have to either accommodate for that rate at some point, or it may be an option to do a subgrant adjustment and reconcile that small difference. Airfare. Air travel should be utilized when it is more economical than surface transportation. Reimbursement for commercial air travel will be limited to coach fare only. Airfare that exceeds $500 must obtain written approval by the chief of the Community-Based Aid Program. Be sure to list where you're leaving from and where you're going to, and the amount requested. Applicants match in the total cost. Lodging. Lodging is available for reimbursement the night before an activity ends through the night before an activity ends. Let me provide an example. If your conference begins on Monday and it ends on Wednesday, let's just say 5:00 p.m., the Crime Commission will reimburse you for lodging on Sunday night, Monday night, and Tuesday night. It is the expectation that you are to fly home Wednesday after the conference. If that is not doable or accommodating to your situation, your county or tribe will have to match the lodging. We will only reimburse for lodging the night before an activity begins through the night before an activity ends. Rates must not exceed those listed for the location of travel, which is again found on the GSA website. Meals. Rates must not exceed those listed for the location of travel, which is found again on the GSA website. Additionally, incidentals are not reimbursable through this grant. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner are allowed, but based on these following set of guidelines that I'm going to read off to you here, which are also found on page 14 of the RFA. Tips are not to exceed 20% of the allowable cost. Receipts must be separate for each individual, with the only exception being multiple youth receiving meals in the same establishment. If you have questions on this, please be sure to contact the Community-Based Aid Division. Receipts must be itemized. Alcohol must not be listed anywhere on the receipt. If meals are provided at a conference, reimbursement for additional meals or as a replacement will not be reimbursed unless there are extenuating circumstances approved by the chief of the Community-Based Aid Program. Allowable time frame to request reimbursement for meals when traveling overnight is the following. You may be reimbursed for breakfast if you leave for overnight travel at or before 6:30 a.m. You may be reimbursed for lunch when you leave for overnight travel at or before 11 a.m. or if you return from overnight travel at or before 2 p.m. You may be reimbursed for dinner when you return from overnight travel at or before 7 p.m. For one-day travel, breakfast will be reimbursed if you leave before 6:30 a.m. Dinner will be reimbursed if you return after 7 p.m. Lunch is not reimbursed for one-day travel. There's a section here for other costs. Here are some things to consider that are allowable and reimbursable for out-of-state travel for other costs. Luggage fees. One checked-in bag is reimbursable. The Crime Commission is not responsible for additional fees incurred for exceeding the maximum weight limitations for standard luggage fees. Private transport. This must be reasonable and comparable to public transportation if available. Several forms of private transport include Uber, Lyft, taxis, etc. Tips are not to exceed 20% of the bill. The Crime Commission is not responsible to reimburse you if you use luxury private transport. So if staff in the Community-Based Aid Division is able to look up reasonable transport in the area that you traveled, and for instance, for an extreme situation you used a luxury limousine, the Crime Commission would not reimburse you for that. Public transportation is allowable. Metro, bus, train, ferry, trolley, subway, etc. Rental cars. These are only allowable if written approval is obtained by the chief of the Community-Based Aid Program. A cost analysis will need to be submitted by that individual, which details that renting a car is less expensive than utilizing public transportation from the airport to the lodging facility. Parking. When utilizing air travel, parking costs for a vehicle are reimbursable for only the necessary days of travel. Parking costs for personal travel are the responsibility of the traveler. The parking option utilized must be economical and comparable to the other parking options surrounding the airport. For example, at the Omaha Eppley Airport, there's economy parking, long term. There's a north lot and a south lot, and I believe it's anywhere from $5 to $7 a day. There's also garage parking at $15 a day. The Crime Commission would reimburse you up to whatever the rate is for that long-term parking during that time frame. We are not going to reimburse you that entire $15 a day if you choose to park in the garage. Again, refer to page 14 of the RFA for these detailed instructions. Operating expenses of the consultant contract. Please view funding limitations on page 7 of the request for application to receive guidance on unallowable and allowable operating expenses. Be sure to complete all blanks in this table when requesting funds for operating expenses to include the rate per month, amount requested, applicants matched, and the total cost. Definition and clarity is provided on page 7 of the RFA for allowable and unallowable expenses. Operating expenses budget breakdown. Be sure to fill out for each request listed in the table above. Question number 1. If you are requesting funds for educational materials, list the name and purpose for each material. So just be sure to list the exact name of the educational material, such as Third Millennium, for example, or the title of it. Additionally, list why this specific educational material is utilized for the youth being served. That would be the purpose of it. Question number 2. Provide research that supports the selection of the educational materials. List any information or resources that were utilized to choose the educational materials that are being listed. Grant reviewers truly do desire to understand the reason and method utilized when deciding to use a specific educational material. Question number 3. Explain how each operating expense listed above will benefit a program or service listed in this grant application. There are several operating expenses that are allowable, and an explanation is needed for each request for this question. For example, if incentives for youth are being requested, then explain how purchasing incentives has benefited that particular service or program. What has been witnessed as a result of purchasing incentives for youth? Did their attendance increase? Did their grades increase? If so, what data or information did you use to support the purchase of these incentives? And question number 4. Provide a breakdown of costs for each line item above. Answer this question for all requests in the operating expenses table. If it was not clear in this table up above, let me explain. For example, if scholarships for youth are being requested at a rate of $500 per month in the operating expenses table, so you put $500 a month and you times that by 12 and put the amount here. That does not give us an appropriate breakdown. That doesn't tell us and give us the full picture. Therefore, what you would put here in question number 4 is something like $50 scholarships for 10 youth a month equals $500 a month. Refer to page 15 of the RFA for instructions. Category B, Consultants and Contracts Total. In this column, you're going to list the total for all the tables that you just filled out. The total for contract fees, personnel fees, travel fees, and operating fees. This will match the total for the Consultants and Contracts category on page 2 of this application, which is the budget summary. Category C, Travel. Funds in this category should reflect travel expenses of county and tribe employees. Refer to the travel instructions outlined in Category B, Consultants and Contracts, as this section adheres to the exact same set of guidelines. Remember, all travel expenses listed below are reimbursed for actual expenses incurred within allowable rates only. Category D, Operating Expenses. Once again, see funding limitations in this document to receive guidance on unallowable and allowable operating expenses. Complete all the blanks in the table when requesting funds. And refer to the operating expenses budget breakdown outlined in Category B, Consultants and Contracts, as this section adheres to the exact same set of guidelines. Just be sure that you're only using Category D for operating expenses requested for county or tribe employees. And finally, the match narrative section of the budget breakdown. This year, this section is new. A budget breakdown of all match dollars required by the applicant must be outlined in this table below. Account for match funds in the appropriate category in the budget summary on page 2 of the application. Match is financially monitored with the same requirements as the amount requested through this application. Be sure to provide a detailed description and breakdown of what the county or tribe is providing for match. Use the chart below to provide the necessary and required information. Match is any county or tribal expenditure related to juvenile services. In-kind match is unallowable. Remember, match can be an expenditure of the county or tribes that is unallowable or allowable in the community-based aid program. As stated here, match is any county or tribal expenditure related to juvenile services in your county or tribe. This table provides budget breakdown examples. So for personnel, you will list wages and fringe benefits, consultants' contracts, rate per hour or day, wages, fringe benefits, travel, mileage, lodging, meals, airfare, operating expenses, postage, communication, utilities, registration, educational materials, office supplies, office equipment, office rent, auditing. Now remember, I listed unallowable expenses here because match can be any county or tribal expenditure related to juvenile services. In-kind match is unallowable. So just be sure in this table to account for your required match amount. So on page 2, the budget summary, the total match amount should equal and match this figure for the total match amount. Be sure you account for everything when we're able to come out and financially monitor your county or tribe. We should be able to look in this one section to see how your county or tribe is providing match, hard cash match. Refer to page 16 of the RFA for instructions. The last thing I would say is be sure that throughout the application, if you're requesting funds and your county or tribe is matching that specific request that you're including within the budget breakdown, be sure to include it in these figures here. You'll just also include all match breakdown and description in this table also. And if you have questions on that, the Community-Based Aid Division staff can sit down with you and explain this to you further. This concludes Section 4, Budget Breakdown.